Oh my God, that was so hard. Hi, my friends. I am using a different way of actually going live. Hi, my friends, family, saints, and aides. That was so hard. And it's not really. I've changed the way I am going live. I was using this other app, and now they just want to charge me too much money. StreamYard guys, for what I use it for. They've added all of these other nice features, and if you use all these other nice features, then it's a great deal or upgrade. But to charge me $20 more a month for things I'm not going to use, I'm like, eh. So let me just use Facebook. And the only reason I went to that StreamYard is because StreamYard was streaming in my personal page, which is where I like to go live, and it was also streaming in my business page, and I could use a third place, and I was streaming it on my YouTube channel, which is hilarious because these videos get like a couple of views if I'm lucky a week. But who knows? You never know. And sometimes I hear from one person that what I did or what I said was impactful. And for me, until God says otherwise, that's what it's about. If I knew then what I know now, tomorrow's Valentine's Day, obviously, maybe not obviously, but I am crazy, crazy about my kids. I love them so, so much. And they are older now. I've got a 32-year-old, a 20, a 32-year-old, a 30-year-old, and a 28, almost 29-year-old. And I'm really hoping that right now, if someone is listening, or even if it's in the recording, you can hear me because I don't know if you can or not. But I really do love them, and of course, there are no perfect parents. If you think you're a perfect parent, you haven't been parenting long enough. That's all. And Lord knows I wasn't a perfect parent, but with God's help and a wonderful husband, we raised three amazing children. It has not been without its challenges, and even as adults, I still, my role is a little different. It's a lot different, but I still do have a role, so I'm still learning to parent always. So what's going on this week? Before I get to our Radiant Wrap, and Radiant is an acronym that I use. It stands for what I believe are the principles to be healthy and whole, which are rest, activity awareness, diet, introspection, agua, which is hydrating, note taking or journaling, and training of your mind and your body. And oh my gosh, to be a parent, you need to do all those things, and it's really hard to do a lot of those things, but you do the best you can. It is February 13th. Al Chase was born this day in 1883. Who was Al Chase? Well, he was considered one of the best first basemen of all times. Chuck Yeager, he was also born a first pilot to break the sound barrier. And my girl Denise Austin, she's a fitness instructor, and she was born on this day in 1957. She was one of the first fitness people that I was aware of. I'm like, oh, you can do this like as a job, and she was always like so bubbly and so forth. And yeah, for a long time. I mean, she was one of the few for a really long time. Till Jody Watley came out with a video, a fitness video. I never saw a person of color for a long, long time. But Denise, it's her birthday today. Happy birthday. Also in 1861, Abe Lincoln was elected president. And in 1920, the Negro National League was formed. Negro National Baseball League was formed. Why was it formed in 1920? Because black people couldn't play in the National Baseball League. So people like Josh Gibson, who is considered one of the best hitters of all time, played in the Negro National League. I said considered one of the best hitters of all time, not just for that league, of all times. And I'm just naming two of them. Cool Papa Bell, from what I understand, is considered one of the fastest in baseball history. All of us, or unless you're living under a rock, have heard of Jackie Robinson. By the way, if you have not seen that movie, watch the Jackie Robinson movie. It's so good. He broke the color barrier and actually played in the National Negro League for 1 year, and then he was the first African American to play in the National Baseball League. And Larry Doby, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, or Dobby, it could be. He also played in both leagues. So I'm sure there's others, but those are two players that I know of that played in both the Negro League and the NBL, National Baseball League. Okay, today is National Donor Day. Tomorrow, actually. And that's a very important day to me. I actually have two cousins. Two cousins. One's a first cousin. Yeah, one's a first cousin, and one is second cousin. Two cousins removed from me, who both had heart transplants. Yeah, you heard me. Heart transplants. And then one of my very best friends is an organ donor surgeon. She's a kidney transplant surgeon. So I'm very well aware of how important donor um, volunteer donor um, donating is, I should say, and encourage you to opt to do that. Like, have a donation card. If something, God forbid, were to happen to you and your organs are good, you could save lives. You can save lives. This week is a heart failure awareness week. And last year, towards the end of the year, I had a good friend of mine went into heart failure. Thank God he's still here. He's doing well. But we want to acknowledge Heart Failure Week and just becoming more aware. It's also Sepsis Survivor Week. That's nasty, nasty invasion of your body, and to survive that, not everybody does. And of course, this month is American Heart Month, which goes really nicely because it is always a matter of the heart in terms of love, in terms of taking care of our bodies and our heart, right? We need that to live. So I was telling you that if I knew then what I know now, and that how gracious God was to me and is to me, um, my kids, like I said, are amazing human beings. But I didn't do everything right. I definitely parented from a fearful place because I was just so protective of my children. And I had grown, like, I thought I was doing good because I wasn't like, pulling out belts and switches and beating them and stuff. I wasn't doing that, so I thought I was doing, better. I don't think now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's not a place for a controlled, spanking or pan. I did some pinching in my days. I do a little pinch, um, because you don't want the kids to leave the home and then they have to learn how to get beat down when they're out in society, right? So I'm not saying there's not a place for that, but there is a point in my parenting beliefs that, you know, beating on a kid and even the word beating is just not how I would parent. And so that was something I learned really early on. I think my son taught me that because it just wasn't working for him anyways. If I'd spank him, he he was so stubborn it didn't matter. And then he ended up being just the best kid anyways. Listen to me. A lot of people say the boys are the harder, but in my case, my son was whatever I said. For the most part, he did. I don't know, maybe because I scared him. I don't know, but I definitely did want to protect my kids. And it was, certain things I was able to shield them from, but other things I was not. And it's even more challenging for all of you parents of today and grandparents of today who are dealing with social media and all of the information coming in from so many different places. And we're seeing, at an all-time high, people are dealing with anxiety and stress and things like that. So there are things that we need to definitely do better. Now, tough love, that is something that I was good at with my kids, just in terms of making sure that they had good manners. Like, I didn't back off of that. They were very respectful human beings. They know how to look someone in the eye. So again, it wasn't all the social media where you were constantly behind a screen, and not having to deal with people. So I made sure of that too. And just some skills that a lot of kids don't have. Made sure they knew how to take care of themselves, that they could cook, that they could clean, some basics before they left the house. Now, I'll admit with my son, before I got kind of panicky when I was like, oh my gosh, you're in 11th grade. Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do? And so I was like, making sure because, I feel like I had done quite a few things for him. So where I was weak is striving for perfection. I think I was really hard in that way. And although I wasn't spanking them, I was complaining, fussing, yelling a lot. And so I learned, well, not as I did learn when they were still pretty young to curb that. So the first thing I learned, the first big aha I learned was to get up a little bit earlier. So with each kid, because all my kids, I had 3 kids in 4 years. So with each one, I needed to get up early. So I learned that skill pretty early on. Then the second one was, it was all of them are in school now. The mornings were so hectic. My husband didn't always, if he were in town, because he traveled a lot, he didn't have to get up early. And one day I just listened to how stressful I was making it. Where's your shoe? And did you get your lunch? And what do you mean you have got this assignment due? We need to go. You're going to be late. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this all of a sudden I could hear myself? Is this how I sound every day? Is this what my husband hears in the morning when he's in the, home in the bed? I got to change this. And so I went on a journey to change that. If I had known it sooner, I would have done it sooner. I think my son might have been in the second grade, and I mean everyone was just leaving the house stressful. So I knew that was the thing that I learned. I am setting the thermostat in this environment. I am setting the thermometer in how this energy in this house goes, in how everyone who leaves this house goes. That a lot of that I put on myself, and rightfully so. And then the third thing I learned is, again, they're in elementary school, and I'm just learning. And I think this was from Maya Angelou, to let your eyes light up when they walk into the room. Like, let them know that, their presence matters, and put down whatever it is I'm working on. I didn't do that always. And so, um, smile at them. And, and lastly, and this is one that I'm still working on, is to be a better listener, to be inquisitive, to ask questions. Um, I'm reading a book, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and she's talking about that too. Being inquisitive as a leader and listening. And so I would say to all the parents, grandparents, anyone listening or watching this is, in that listening, be an active listener, and um, you don't have to respond then. Like, I don't have to have all the answers. Um, I can come back. I can say, well, let me process it, let me think about it, let me pray about it, and then come back to respond. And I never did that, child. I would be like on it, And now let me, before I even, so it then they wouldn't be as trusting if they're, and I don't know all of what they're thinking, if I'm shutting it down and then trying to say what it is that I think is the best, or in a lot of cases what I know to be the best, but it might not be for them. It may not be for how they're thinking. And so for me to better know that, I need to listen. So that's a skill that I'm working on. And this week, the reason this came to mind, I listened to a podcast, a Simon Chang podcast this week with Holton Buggs. And in the podcast, Holton is younger than me, but he's not a youngin. He says he grew up in Tampa, and he says multi millionaire. My mom, he said, used to give me all of these affirmations. He said he would never get a spanking or he would never get on punishment. If he did something bad in school, he would never get in trouble. Now, this is something I would really, I consider doing way better, like Holton Buggs' mom did. He says, and I guess in a way it would shame him, but what she would do was tell him, God designed you to be a leader and a provider. She would say these things over and over and over again, even if he came home from school and he was in trouble. God designed you to be a leader and a provider. Over and over, how could you do such a thing? And then he would, kind of embrace that. And so, despite, however, my mishaps, my kids are thriving. And the only other thing I would say, just in terms of the love for my kids, as I become aware that I've messed up in some way, I apologize to them. I'm sorry, even if it's something that from years ago. I'm sorry that, I didn't listen to you, or I didn't hear you, or I didn't approach that situation better. Will you forgive me? You know? And sometimes they're willing to let it go, and sometimes they're not. I'm um, talking recently to a person, a mom, who hasn't seen her child in 7 or 8 years. I haven't talked to them in over a year. And so I'm prayerful and hopeful that that situation will change. But once the mom, apologizes and then it's up to the child to be at the adult child, to be ready to accept the apology and to move on. And in the meantime, we can pray about it. So, why do I share all of these things? Because we are all growing until we are no longer here. We have a purpose, and our purpose is tied into sharing, right? Our gifts. And so I believe that that was something that was important to share, and that it can be a benefit to someone. That's my prayer. And it is Valentine's Day, and just, as a mom, um, I love you, and I want you to have a good connection, good relationship with your children. It doesn't mean that you can be a pushover all the time and you can never say no. That might be something that you need to work on. No, I could say no. Um, that was not a problem. My husband sometimes, yeah, he's a great dad. So listen, I love you. You have greatness inside of you. I believe in you. I love you. Nothing you can do about it. Bye.